You're listening to This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast. Dive into the top online retail headlines with your hosts, Paul Waddy and Mal Chia. Let's load up the cart. Welcome to another week at This Week in E-Commerce, the Ecom Nation podcast with me, Mal Chia, and Paul Waddy.
Mal, welcome to my humble abode, or as I call it, the House of Squeaky Chairs.
Yeah, that's right. We've got to remember not to move around too much. It's good to actually be here, recording with you in person. It's a rare treat.
Yeah. Can you smell the mahogany?
I can actually smell the mahogany. I can also smell many other things, but we're going to
mostly mahogany.
Yeah, it's good to be in Sydney this week. So I'm actually in town at the Rakuten Dealmaker Conference, which is a lot of fun. I've never been to an affiliate marketing conference before.
I didn't get that.
Oh, sorry, Serge.
Mal said he's never been.
Yeah. But it was good. It was really good. It was actually great because there were so many people there who came up to me and said that they watched this.
Oh, that's good.
Which is excellent. So it's good to know that it's not just our team and our friends and family who are watching it. So it's really great to hear that.
That's nice. What any key takeaways from the affiliate conference?
One big one is that they're seeing a real growth in that market. And I can sense that as well. Like it feels like affiliate marketing is on the rise. The number which Rakuten were quoting, and I don't know whether this is their number or whether another body had given this number, is that they're anticipating that right now affiliate marketing as an industry is worth $20 billion globally. They're expecting that to rise to $40 billion by 2030, which is phenomenal growth. So that's roughly about 20% year-on-year growth. And I'm kind of looking at that going like, it makes sense. It would have sounded wild, like, a few years ago that it would have grown this much in such a short period of time. But to me right now, with how I look at the market, in particular, the need to diversify where your traffic is coming from, the need to reach consumers through different ways, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think, I'd be interested to know your take on that. Affiliates for me, they go two ways, don't they? Because there's a lot of cheap and nasties out there. And I think in my early days of using affiliates, I was always so suspect when they were claiming sales on, sales that I was going to get anyway. Like my pet hate is when somebody publishes an expired discount code. And it's irrelevant if the customer uses it because the last click is coming from some so-and-so looking for a discount code. So, I mean, what's your take on how to use affiliates strategically and without necessarily discounting?
Well, I think that was my feeling of affiliates probably up to about 7 or so years ago. Yeah, affiliates was very bottom of the funnel. And I guess as an industry, that's kind of how they position themselves, right? So there's this really strong focus on couponing, couponing being a big part of what affiliate marketing has typically been all about. But I'm seeing a real trend, and, there's Rakuten who are doing this, Impact.com who are really championing this as well, about using affiliates to reach out to publishers and therefore different audiences higher up the funnel. And part of that's changing the incentive structure as well, that rather than incentivizing purely on a purchase, they're now looking at different models of like incentivizing on, a first touch, a first touch attribution model. So I know that there's publishers like, networks like Linkbee, for instance, who is an Australian company who are really disrupting it. They're doing a really great job in that space. So is Skimlinks, obviously playing off the success of other platforms like Taboola to really get more content out there, more brand-led content out there to attract customers earlier before they're ready to buy, before they are looking for that discount. And then changing the commission structure to reward those brands at that point for driving that first touch traffic, for driving that new consumer, rather than just converting someone right at the end, which to your point is all about, someone's going to buy anyway. They search for the discount code, they get that, you're paying a commission and you're paying the discount. Yeah. You're kind of losing both ends.
What a treat. But I think that sounds great. But I think they need retailers who are smart enough to get out of the bottom of the funnel, because the question they're going to get, which is what's the ROAS on that? And so what you're saying there is it's more of a top of funnel brand building thing. And that's actually awesome, because like I know Rakuten, for example, work with some pretty, I think like the Qantas is technically an affiliate. Yes. So I think you can actually get into some really good marketing out of proper affiliate marketing, can't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think part of it is making sure that you do look at it as a full funnel. You are looking at not just in isolation and looking at all your media, looking at all your marketing holistically and understanding where in the funnel it plays to. So if all you're looking for is that immediate ROAS off that platform, you're probably not going to see it to what you want it to. So it's making sure you take a step back. In the same way when we talk about doing any sort of marketing, looking at things holistically, the whole myth about this channel directly drives that, it's next to impossible to actually be able to do that. Even with like media mix modeling, you're never going to get 100% accurate view of what's actually driving that conversion.
And who really cares? Like, it's kind of like, am I better off doing this thing or not?
Yeah.
And your MER more or less will tell you that.
Well, exactly. That's why MER was invented, to be able to provide that proxy measure to kind of be able to allow you to look at, is your marketing efficient? Yes or no?
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that.
What else is happening in the week of e-commerce?
Well, second headline, which I want to talk to you about, is one which I think is very close to your heart. ShipStation released a study recently showing that 1 in 10 consumers under the age of 50 had processed a return in the last 6 months. That doesn't sound too surprising, but where they went into was actually the environmental impact. Now I'm going to have to look at my phone on this because there's a lot of numbers here.
Does that make a 20% return rate globally? Is that what they're saying?
No, well, they're saying 1 in 10 consumers.
1 in 10. So
1 in 10.
Well,
10% of consumers had done one return.
Also, technically probably a less than 10% return.
Less than 10% return rate, assuming you buy more than one. So that seems a little on the low side to me. It seems a little on the low side, knowing that most retailers have about a 10%. 5% is good, 10% is probably normal, unless you're like a fast fashion brand, in which case you've probably got like a 20% return rate. Or shoes. Let's not even talk about shoes.
Yeah.
But the ShipStation report, though, showed that the environmental impact of returns is that there are 15 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions just purely from returns, and also that 25% of product returns end up in landfill. So pretty alarming numbers when you think about it, that for those, when you buy four different size dresses, at least just to try one and maybe keep one or return or keep none, at least one of those is going to end up in landfill somewhere. It's pretty alarming, the fact that no one wins in that situation, and the environment 100% loses.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because fashion is maybe the largest part of e-commerce. Like it's got to be up there, right, as one of the largest categories, and particularly women's fashion. It changes super fast, So it's a real challenge for these, particularly fashion brands, because by making your product last, that's one thing. How do you make it last the test of time in terms of the trends? And by making it last, you're actually dropping your revenue. I think I went to one conference where somebody actually proposed that the way to tackle this issue of fast fashion is to come on, retailers, we've got to sell less. Well, good luck putting that on the board table. So I don't know the answer to this. I think what we are hearing is returns is a massive contributor to landfill, and nobody likes returns, right? Because generally you've got to refund or you've got to bin the garment, and a lot of brands are guilty also of looking at the return and kind of putting it at the back of the warehouse, even though sometimes it's sellable, and then it ends up on that pallet that goes off to God knows where. So returns are just like the ugly sister of orders. And I think they're a bit of a blemish on brands. Like as brands, we need to look at I had a call this morning with someone who, I asked, what's your return rate? And they just didn't know. We need to look at that and I think try and actually lower our return rates, one, for commercial reasons, and two, for the reasons that you just said. But I guess there's an ethical question there as well that retailers have to face, which is to say, like, not thinking about returns right now, but just thinking about landfill. Like, truly, how do retailers genuinely tackle this? Because I got to say, like, for fast fashion businesses, and I've worked with heaps of them, as have you, do they really want to tackle it? Because that's their business.
Yeah,
selling more,
get you to buy 4 of them.
Churn and burn.
Yeah, and hopefully you don't forget to return.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's a massive one. And but we're interested in those businesses that are peer-to-peer marketplaces. Designer X was a great one, and I think those guys are the way of the future. But fast fashion, I don't know how they're going to tackle tackle this.
Well, I want to give a shout out to one of our clients, Rough Sleeper, as well, who are taking dead stock garments, dead stock apparel, which is destined for landfill, and taking that and repurposing that into streetwear.
Very cool.
So they've been doing that. They've got their trash tee, which is 100% made out of dead stock, dead stock materials, and I'm now making a really, really good, solid, basic t-shirt out of it. And doing incredibly well. So, they just launched, so I'm really proud of the work which they're doing there. I'm seeing more of that as well. But then also you've got the likes of Julie Mathers, Julie talking about actually buying smarter, as well, actually investing the time to make sure that what you're buying, is quality, is ethical, all that stuff to make sure that to give people the confidence of what they're buying is a good garment. It is going to last to minimize returns because you're just going to have less problems with it.
Yeah.
In the first place.
And I think that's brave because my feeling on that is right now, those first movers commercially might actually be copying a bit of a hiding. But I think in 10 years, it'll be paying it back in spades. So I think all of us kind of think, we're so ethically minded when we shop, but we're not really. Like we maybe think about it occasionally, but I don't think commercially it's quite there yet. And I only need to look at the sales of the fast fashion clients versus the more ethical ones to know there's a massive imbalance there because style still trumps the ethical side right now. So I think those first movers might be copying it a little bit in terms of sacrificing revenue now. In fact, they definitely are sacrificing short-term revenue for the greater good. But I do think there'll be that inflection point or whatever in 10 years where sentiment it's not sentiment, it's the norm. And we know things can change in a decade. So I think right now it's still very early days for consumers to actually put their money where their mouth is and say, no, I only shop at ethical brands. I know some do, but it's a minority. I see it in the revenue numbers. But those early movers, I reckon, are going to get paid back big time in a decade. Well, hopefully not a decade, but
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of it for the value for consumers. Making sure that when they see that the value proposition's there, that they should stump up a little bit more, or the cost of that manufacture comes down. And you see the same happen with electric vehicles. Where now electric vehicles, Tesla, very first early mover, now they dominate the market. They sell more electric cars than anyone else.
But the thing about that is they've got the extra hook that it's cheaper as well to maintain. Do you know what I mean? So I know a lot of Uber drivers are driving because I speak to them. I love the electric cars. You bought one. I haven't got there yet. But the Uber driver's like, I hardly ever fill up. So they've got the double whammy. They've got the saving on the hip pocket. So the retailers, if we can somehow find, we've got a product that we're working on that does this, but if you can somehow save the planet and save the dollars, that's the golden ticket. Because I'm just not sure that people will pay a premium just to save the planet. Some will, but it's not mainstream.
It's not mainstream, absolutely.
But electric vehicles, there's a double whammy. Yep. So as a retailer, if you can think about saving the planet, but there's a commercial aspect, I think it's write your own check. I think it's a home run.
Well, let's keep watching that space and see what happens over the next few years with that. Now, the big story we want to cover off this week is another study which we saw showing that CBD vacancy rates had bottomed out. That they were expecting that this is currently the lowest we're expecting occupancy rates in CBD to be. This is across Australia. So my question is, does this now open up the opportunity with rates so low for some brands to really start getting into the omnichannel space, to really start thinking about building a footprint, while those deals are there with landlords who are trying to attract tenants, into the CBD. And we're seeing more of that now with more and more stores opening up their bricks and mortar. Like July, which only launched a couple of years ago, with their luggage. By the way, I bought some July luggage recently.
How was it?
Love it. It's fantastic. It's upstairs in your living room right now.
And this is not an endorsement, Mal. Generally,
I generally
we'll be happy to receive endorsements.
If anyone wants to give us some product, more than happy to take
we'll
it.
review it.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic product. It's generally the best piece of luggage I've bought in my life.
That's huge.
And I have a lot of luggage.
Yeah.
You know how much I travel.
Yes.
So it's been great. But they've recently opened up with bricks and mortar. But they started originally D2C. Now they've opened up bricks and mortar. And we're seeing that happen more and more. Obviously Stacks recently opening up bricks and mortar in the last couple of years. Yes, they did.
Wow.
P Nation, they're on George Street, just on George Street, I believe.
P Nation.
Yeah, P Nation. They've got one in the QBH, QVB. So we're starting to see that trend. And do you think that's going to be, is this now an opportunity for these retailers? We've talked about the importance of having that physical presence being on brand. Is this opportunity now for retailers to start thinking about getting a physical presence, getting into omnichannel more?
Oh, I'm a scorned retailer. Before I saw the light of e-commerce, I had started as a wholesaler, and I've had about 5 or 6 stores. And let me tell you, the rents would have to be right-sized substantially because there is such a disproportionate amount between rents charged and foot traffic, and we should dive into that in a spreadsheet somewhere because it's outrageous. Like the way we judge e-commerce on a cost per click, I'd love a cost per knock. I'd love a cost per, walk. It would be ridiculous. It would be off the charts, And the thing is, retailers don't look at that. They just walk in and someone might sit out the front with a pen and paper and be like, oh, there's good foot traffic. But they're not really diving into the numbers. So I think that rents, for me, this is my personal experience, would have to come down substantially for me as a retailer, an online retailer, to open a store. I would almost consider it a marketing thing, a beautiful fit out, a billboard. But knowing what I know about retail, the per store sales will not come close to an average online retail. The sales that you've got to do, let's say not many stores are making $100,000 a month, even the big ones. That I know that for a fact. I can get you going on an online store in 9 months using my new course to get to $100,000 a month. And the stress and the rocking up, and the staff. Look, I think CBD rentals have been at a square metre rate off the charts because suckers will pay it like me. And then that's stopped. And obviously spending's down and people want inflation to come down. So this is what's happening. Things slowly are becoming cheaper. Personally, I think it's got to come down 25% minimum rents to be worth it.
And I think it's bottoming out now. I think that's what they're suggesting, that the rental marketplace, it's a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Or it's a renter's market.
I'd have to have a look, but I think the right brands, like July, that makes sense to me because also you got tourists there in the city. Like if you're P Nation as well, I've seen those. They're like
beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're marketing things. I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at that for customer acquisition cost to come down as well. A true integrated omni-channel experience, 100%. Click and collect.
I think that's where the opportunity is, like not to have a store in isolation, but to look at it as part of your overall sales marketing channel mix.
Yeah.
Right. So LSKD, another one, they're opening stores faster than they're releasing product. Every week it seems like they're opening new stores. They've opened a store in San Diego now. And those things, they're just temples to the brand. You go there, you experience it, you get to touch and feel the brand. Whether they make their money back, I'm not sure. But do they exist as a place where people can go and touch and feel and experience the brand and get what they're all about? And you look, I think Apple obviously pioneered this with their Apple stores. These are gigantic temples to their brand. They're like the Hillsong of tech, of consumer tech.
Yeah.
These giant temples like in the middle of like George Street one is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This 2-3-story glass building. I don't know how much they would make there. I don't know what the rent would be there. But it'd be substantial, but it wouldn't just be based on that because the fact is someone walks past that building every single day. And if you love Apple, it reinforces your love. If you don't know about Apple, you're Apple curious, you may start to think more about, maybe I'll walk in, or, it just starts to build that.
You see the lines out the front because they do the repairs. See people sitting outside getting the free Wi-Fi as well. But look, I think if it's an integrated thing, I would just be cautious of anybody looking to do it purely on commercial value. But I mean, horses for courses. The Culture King store in Vegas, like for me, that's just so impressive. I don't know if it makes money or not, but it's so impressive, and P Nation as well. But I guess I hope I'm not being too negative here, but I've paid a few landlords and run from a few leases in my time. So, but I think integrated is the key, and that's what omnichannel should be. It's just if they work together and
Yeah, I certainly don't think bricks and mortar on its own can survive. Yeah, I think they need each other more and more. But what I'm seeing now with particularly the bigger brands or the smarter brands, the more innovative brands, I should say, is that they're learning to leverage both. Even when I was at Riderwear, we opened the gyms, and the gyms were there to be a temple to the brand. They were there for someone to be able to go and train and experience the brand, because that was what our whole ethos was about. Yeah. So you got to actually live and breathe Riderwear.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, if you can do something like that, I think like retailers saying, yeah, we'll serve coffee there. I mean, it's got to be more than that. But see, that's a great example of an experience. Yeah, we sell clothes as well, but it kind of comes back to the top of funnel, the branding. It's a brand building thing. Yeah, we also sell, like when I walk past Apple, the first thing I notice is, wow, it's packed. That must be cool. And I'm sure they serve people slowly to get the lines, you know. But yeah, look, and I think having stores, maybe it elevates the brand as well. Obviously, if you see one in the city, you think, oh, these guys must be all right. And yeah, July 1, that sounds good.
Go head down to Melbourne and check that out next time I'm there. So, Paul, that's all we've got time for today. Any last tips or thoughts for the listeners?
No, just I think the light at the end of the tunnel is there for anyone that maybe is struggling a bit. We are seeing, as you said, things are bottoming out and coming back over the last few months. Probably a lot of retailers a little bit worried. Good opportunity for brands to lean up a little bit. And if you can survive and do okay now, I think survival turns to prosperity soon enough. So I think light at the end of the tunnel for anybody struggling. What about you?
Black Friday is coming up awfully quickly. So what I was suggest is that if you haven't started your planning for that now, I would be starting that now. But in particular, really thinking about what your objectives are for that period. Are you just looking at to drive revenue, or are you looking at to actually free up some cash flow?
I feel a webinar coming.
I do feel a webinar coming up for this. We should do one.
Okay, stay tuned for our Get Ready for Black Friday webinar.
There you go. On that. Thanks, Paul. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me into your lovely
pleasure. Home. Good to see you, Mal.